information. If you look at number 3 in the packet, if you look at page number 3 on the packet, it tells you, it gives you a link to click on and join. So if you've done that already, you're already with us. Item B, roll call. We just did roll call. We know who's here and we know who's not here. So, and we do have quorum. Hang on one second, it's being, okay.
That PowerPoint presentation too.
Yes.
Okay, I don't need it. Just get- Where did Ron go?
Oh, no. I don't think I touched it.
No, I don't think we put it.
I don't know how I.
Where'd Ron go?
I think you might have pressed the wrong button and fallen off.
Maybe.
You obscured his background very effectively.
He's still probably just talking to himself.
Right.
Can I get a second? Can I get a second?
Can you hear me?
Just waiting for him to pop up.
Chad, the beginning of these meetings isn't usually this chaotic.
Ah.
Only every other time.
There he is. He's back.
Ron.
Okay, my name, it says that's my email address, Dino4, but I'll stay with that for now. Did you guys go ahead without me there for a little bit or?
No, we waited for you.
Oh, okay, great. Item C, approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, tonight's agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes from the March 15th, 2023 meeting. Do we have did anybody, any comments or?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved. Item E, regular business. Item number 1, certificate of appropriateness 23-06, consideration with possible action on a design review for a replacement front porch located at 820 South Quincy. Jason.
Thank you. 820 South Quincy, we will see on a map here very soon, as well as a picture that I took in 2015 at the top right. And there you see the porch, more or less the lower porch as it is today, and the upper porch at that time had, square form newels and railings. Shortly before the ordinance was revised in 2018, a proposal came before the Historic Preservation Commission to add a large addition to the rear of the house and to re-side the house. So you see a portion of that rear addition in the lower photograph in 2019. But pointing out here, by this point in 2019, after that work had been done, you see the upper porch railing had been removed, which I suppose was part of that work done under the old ordinance. Don't know, but that's the way it is. So if we go to the next slide, I got a lot of pictures. This is a picture that I took yesterday. And I want to point out here on the lower porch, on the left side below the swing, you'll see the decking has rotted. And I understand that's, a cause of concern. And this COA is calling for the replacement of that wood decking. The COA is also calling for the addition of new upper level railings and newels and replacement of the existing columns and railings and balusters down on the first story. So I've got a few more pictures to look at. So here's my photo just the other day. You see the deck is kind of got some moisture issues. Next slide. These photos were provided by the property owner with the COA application. You see much the same thing. On the upper left, you'll note that the soffit has also got some moisture damage. And you see the deck, that's also an issue. On the lower right graph, not a whole lot to look at necessarily, but it's all part of the same porch. So for your information. Another 2 photographs on the next slide. These also provided by the property owner with the COA application. Just pointing out the, what do we have there? Tuscan style columns with an egg and dart motif at the capital. There's a little bird's nest on one of those columns, not a hole. And some of the decking, again, looking, I'm sure you can figure out which direction that is, but pay attention to the railings and the columns, because here the property owner, that's why the property owner proposes replacing that. So here again, I've got the 2015 photograph before the large addition at the rear. And I've got the isometric view. It's a rough isometric view that was provided with the COA application. And here I need to call your attention to the railing height. So the railing height in the photograph probably does not meet code, but is grandfathered in, and it's a lower height where that rail more or less is at the same level as the window sills in the porch. In the isometric view, of course, you see the property owner is proposing to replace that material with new balusters and rails that would meet existing code. And in so doing, the upper rail is much higher. And I guess the Department of the Interior, the Secretary of the Interior refers to this as a caged-in appearance, which is generally discouraged. So next slide, we see a front elevation proposed and the existing front elevation. In the photograph, you can see that top rail of the porch railing on the first floor pretty well lines up with the window sills from this vantage point. And you know, this is the vantage point of me sitting in the car, trying to act cool, rolling my window down casually and taking photographs of somebody's house. That's to say it's kind of a slightly upward view, right? And yet those rails are still in line with the window sills. In the architectural sketch at left, again, this would be looking more or less straight on at the house, maybe slightly downwards, if anything. You see the railing at the front porch, first story, creates a, well, it's a cage, which is unfortunate, but would meet code. So let's move on to the next slide. Secretary of the Interior does address this in Preservation Brief 45, which is specific to historic wood porches. And here, I don't like reading slides at people, but if I were to read a little bit of this at you, it says, historic porches generally have handrails that measure 28 to 30 inches in height from the floor, from the deck. And that's basically what we see in the existing condition for this house. Current code requirement, I'm not sure what City of Green Bay is, but it's probably in that 36 to 42 inch range. And what the Secretary of the Interior proposes as a compromise where replacement of material is required and satisfying safety code requirements is required, that the design incorporate a booster rail. So in the photo at right, which is from Preservation Brief 45, you see effectively what is a historically appropriate railing height just on top of the balusters. And then above that rail, there's the booster rail to buy you another 6 inches or so. And oftentimes where this is required, you'll see that booster rail painted differently, like a black or dark gray or something to try to camouflage it visually. But I'm not really understanding why the property owner wants to replace the columns and the railings from the get-go here. It appears to me that the historic material is fine. That leaves open the question of the second story of the porch, of course, which would need to meet code. In that case, perhaps a booster rail design would mitigate having a taller cage on top of the porch roof. Unfortunately, or fortunately, in the city of Green Bay, we've had a lot of discussions on this because code requires a certain height. Historic preservation directs us to a lower height. The booster rail seems to be an appropriate compromise. But again, if the current first story porch railing is removed and put back on, well, the grandfathering would still apply. So there's that. If we go to the next slide, this is me attempting to write out what I've just told you. So the existing columns, railings, and balusters really haven't been shown to be irreparable. The decking, yes, okay, fine, the decking is not so good. Proposed replacement material, I've got no information from the property owner on that, just the little architectural sketches you've seen. As I've noted, the proposed new rail height is not in keeping with best practices for a character-defining feature like this two-story porch. So that's at the first story. On the second story, much the same stuff. I don't know what the new material is going to look like. And if we just meet code with taller balusters and a single top rail, I have concerns that I'm passing on to you that it may create a caged-in appearance at the second story. So I'm not recommending approval of the design, but I suppose I'm just going to leave it at that. Is that okay? Thank you. Back to slide.
Is the property owner at this meeting?
Not here, is it?
Oh, it's a cool house though.
Yeah, it's a cool house. No, we're not aware of the property owner in attendance or trying to attend.
I guess I would suggest rather than just doing a straight up denial, maybe we refer this back to staff to reach out to the property owner to maybe negotiate those differences and bring it back to the Landmarks Commission. Once you've had an opportunity to do that, does that seem appropriate?
I don't think there's enough material here to make
Yeah.
a determination one way or another. I mean, if the columns have been or suggested being replaced, we don't know what they're being replaced with. Is it proposed 4x4s or is it a mimic of what's there? So,
Yeah, and I think Ian, when I suggest that as the motion, that gives us the opportunity to get those answers.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement with that as well. We just don't have enough information, and the information we do have implies that it wouldn't be appropriate.
So Brian, are you gonna make that a motion?
Yeah, I move to refer this back to staff, to reach out to the property owner to get answers to some of the outstanding questions and bring it back to Landmarks Commission once that conversation has taken place.
Second,
Ian, did you just second that? I'm sorry.
I did, yep, second.
Okay, we have a motion to refer it back to staff to get more information, and we have a second. All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Once again, are there any nays? Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, that motion carries to refer it back to staff to find more information and bring it back to us again so we can review it. Oh, my screen, other screen went off here. Item number E2, Certificate of Appropriateness 23-07, consideration with possible action on a design review for building addition located at 100 South Jefferson Street. Jason.
Yes, 100 South Jefferson Street is the Brown County Courthouse. The COA application proposes an addition to what are effectively two separate designated historic buildings here. One is the courthouse, the other is the federal building. So in the photograph at right, the building at far right is the former federal building, which is a contributing building in the downtown historic district. Next slide, we see information that has been provided. These are conceptual sketches showing I think a one-story addition that connects these two buildings. So at the courthouse, it would be connecting to effectively the rear addition to the courthouse at the corner of the courthouse. And the other end connects to the back of the federal building, the former federal building. Now, I've conveyed to Chad my recommendation that the county get State Historic Preservation Office approval of plans prior to presenting those plans to the Landmarks Commission, because to be blunt, it's the path of least resistance for the Landmarks Commission. If we know that SHPO has approved of it, well, then my recommendation is to endorse SHPO's recommendation. But at this point, we don't have a SHPO determination on this, and we also, as I understand it, we don't have architectural drawings yet beyond this.
That's correct.
So my recommendation for this time is to, learn more, of course, but to table this until SHPO's had their review and approval action on the same building. Thank you.
I guess I would mirror Ian on the previous question here and say, is there anyone here from the courthouse? Are there architectural staff or anything like that who could discuss this a little bit or tell us that it's been referred to SHPO?
Yeah, motion to open the floor for interested parties.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so again, my question was, is there anyone here from the courthouse or from that building or from their architectural staff regarding that question about SHPO?
There is, I don't know if you can all hear me. I'm Chad. I am the facilities director over at Brown County, and I was the one corresponding with Jason and Stephanie. And so first of all, I just would like to thank them for their contacts and just being forthright with the process. I didn't realize this actually went to the committee. I just received the packet, and that's why I wanted to show up, just introduce myself and give you guys a little background. So this was, we started here with your certificate of approval. That was the route that we got on with the state, filed the similar paperwork, a little bit more than this with the state. And there's been some back and forth as recently as Monday. And we are working with them to just get as much of an initial approval as we can before we go to engage an architect, because we don't want to have $300,000 wrapped up in drawings and they come back and tell us that this particular area isn't going to work. The feeling that I get based on what we've received from their group has been okay. Like they're at this point where they just want more information. We're just trying to establish that the location that we have identified is for good reason. They're, I think, still looking closer at the Courthouse Square as we know it, to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to preserve the interest of both buildings and the area. So at this point, if I understand the process, we are still working on engagement with them. Once we hopefully get the approval, we will come back and I'll just correspond with Stephanie or Jason with another email to say, here's what we received. And then we'll forward this to you, to your committee, and then we'll go from there. Am I-
So you'd be good, Chad, if we just held this right now? That's acceptable to you?
Yeah, I was surprised to see this on here because I felt it's kind of going through this our process. We had this similar process. Obviously, this was a little bit premature in my estimation, but it's a good opportunity to meet you all and just let you know what's going on with everything. Is it safe to assume everybody's understands like what the driving factor is behind this? I
Well,
think
that was gonna be my question to you, Chad. I know it's a link between the two buildings. But the internal workings of the main hub there, can you explain that a little?
yeah, so the design is pretty much mirrored from what Winnebago County did. So I could actually, there is architectural drawings for that. I'm careful not to put that out because I do think we'll make some tweaks based on meetings with those folks down there. They just from experience operationally, there were some things that might make sense to change, and I think we'll do that. But conceptually, it's the same. You have the entrance, you have the exit. We would have a doorway that would allow access into the thoroughfare into the two buildings because both are in lockstep in what they do operationally.
So would this be the primary entrance for everybody going into both buildings?
Yeah, the driver for this is security. I think there's some things to be worked out again operationally, but the long and the short of it is, yes, everybody will be directed to that entrance for court-related business.
Okay, and they'll be security checked at that point, and then once they're in, they should be good to go.
That's right. It's a huge challenge, as you can imagine, with all the doors. It's a labyrinth once you get into the courthouse. But there's a pretty good plan. We have a plan that I feel like will be tightened up in time for all this to come to fruition. And with some exceptions of just, again, key security entrances and egresses to be determined by the sheriff and the staffing that's going to be required to make any strategic changes based on the needs as the sheriff's office see fit.
Yep.
So, yeah, but the idea and the concept, I don't see it changing. The SHPO came back with today it was kind of like a final question of like, okay, how did you arrive at this point? Why not the north? Why not the south? And I think, again, to us, it's fairly obvious. The north side there, you would obstruct the view of the courthouse. The east side, you run out of space, and again, you're obstructing the main, or what was the old main entrance of the courthouse. The south side of the building, you have the existing clerk of courts that does not have the ability to support a structure over the top. And then the annex there is existing, and obviously that's not going to work. So this provides the best spot. And then it's kind of the added bonus of being able to secure the law enforcement building or the federal building, because they share the same and similar concerns with what they're doing in that building as well.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions. I think the route you guys are going is the most appropriate route, and we'll see you back here when you know a little bit more, Chad.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
you
thanks
all
for taking the time to be here. And
Yeah,
just
really.
Thank you,
enlightening
Chad.
us. Yeah,
So then would someone like to present a motion?
motion to close the floor.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I'll second that motion.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chad.
Mhm. So Ian, would you give a motion that you'd like to
We just
present?
need to take a
or-
vote on that, Ron.
What's that?
We need to vote on that.
On what?
Closing the floor.
I'm sorry. A motion to close the floor. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, the floor is now closed. Returning back to the business and everything we just discussed, does anyone have a motion regarding that? Or any further discussion?
I would just make a motion to hold and bring back once SHPO has had the opportunity to review the submitted design.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, so we have a motion to, how did you say that again, Brian?
Motion to hold and bring
Motion-
back when
bring-
SHPO has
motion to
reviewed the
hold.
design.
Right, okay. And we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Is anyone opposed to that motion? Are there any nays? Okay, that motion carries. Next on our agenda is, where am I here? Is the informational, staff level, we're at staff level. I guess this goes to Stephanie.
Yes, I'm Stephanie. There's a staff level COA for new roof shingles on this church, which we've approved. That was the only staff level COA this month. Beyond that, I don't really have any staff level updates of note, except to say that I spoke at the Astor Neighborhood Association meeting earlier this week on Monday to gauge interest in a new National Register Historic District for the houses immediately adjacent to and south of Astor Park, east of Webster, east of the hospital. A straw poll at that time suggested about 21 people in favor and 2 not in favor. If we proceed, that's a potential district of 177 houses. 155 of those would be contributing buildings in the district, 22 would not. That'd be pretty cool. So that's the big one I've got.
Great.
And I would say, as a member of the Astor board, that was a pretty exciting meeting. It really was. The crowd was overwhelmingly pleasant and pro. So it was fun to be there.
Hey, Ron, just a total like aside from that, I would have loved to have attended that. I didn't know it was happening. Is there a way to kind of loop me in on some of those communications?
Going forward, sure, we'll definitely hit you on that. It was posted on our websites and things like that. The Astor website and the Astor Facebook page.
Yeah,
And
I am not immersed
Yeah.
in Facebook. As
Sure,
much
I will
anymore,
make sure
but
that anything that happens like that again, I'll make sure you're notified.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. And then the date of the next meeting will be Wednesday, May 17th. Before I close the floor, does anyone have anything they'd like to add?
I
Anything?
guess I have one thing quick that I'd like to add. You know, if Jason, Stephanie, if you have people in the community or in the district that need to, or would like to talk to somebody that has utilized the historic tax credits, I'm more than happy to be a resource for that. I've used them a number of times. And I've just talked to a couple of people in recent days and were either not aware or they hadn't tumbled to the idea of using historic tax credits on their home. And I just want to make sure that we're getting the word out, because that is an important aspect of how homeowners can take advantage of those credits and do the work that is consistent with guidelines that we put in place. It's a 25% credit. It's not a deduction. So it is a 1 for 1, dollar for dollar credit. So it's pretty significant.
You know, Ian, and I would just piggyback on that, you know, and I don't know what the rules around this would be. You know, but even to have like a list of a half a dozen or so or qualified consultants, right, that we could send people to say, go to this person, they might charge a fee or whatever it is, but it's worth it to capture that kind of tax credit.
Yeah, I think it's an underutilized program, and it's so
Definitely.
easy to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was remiss too. Stephanie is getting at a water park the next few days in the Dells. So Dina is here driving the slideshow today.
Dina Mooney, and I am the new planner one. I started in March. And so if Stephanie ever needs a break, I'll be filling in for her.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Also I always volunteer to help property owners fill out their tax credit applications. If anybody ever says, oh gee, if only I knew where to get started, bounce them back to me and we'll hold the
Yep.
hand to get it filled out.
Great.
Good to know, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else, anyone? All right,
Move to adjourn.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye. And Alder Johnson, I'll make sure you get on that mailing list.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Good
You bet.
job.
Mhm,
Yep.
bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. You did great.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I spaced out on introducing you there at the beginning, but they run the meeting and then I get distracted on talking about old buildings.
You're okay. Did I just end it?
I think so.